The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character.
When my parents landed in Europe, the first thing they saw wasn't a worker helping with bags or a welcome drink. It was a woman at the front desk shaking her head. She told them their fancy reservation didn't exist. Their faces looked confused. Their voices got louder, and every person in that expensive lobby turned to look at them. But their shock didn't actually start there. It started that morning when I pulled into their driveway. I had a 7-day plan in my car, printed and ready. I spent 24 months of extra shifts and every spare dollar saving for this. I didn't know I would walk into a choice they already made. It was a choice that replaced me. It was a choice that changed everything. I used to tell myself that my family wasn't broken. I thought we were just a bit off. Like a scale that leans one way, but you can still fix it. For most of my life, I just held my breath under that weight. I acted like it didn't hurt me. We grew up in a quiet spot on the west side of town. Everything looked fine from the street. The grass was always cut, and neighbors waved. Mom was always putting flowers in the kitchen window. Dad sat right next to her reading the paper. And somewhere behind them, always behind them, was me. I was doing all the work that no one noticed. I paid their bills when they forgot. I drove them to doctors when Dad didn't feel like driving. I helped my sister every time she made a mess of things. She lost jobs, she lost friends, and her rent was always late. It never mattered if I was tired from my own job or only had 4 hours of sleep. I was the steady one. I was the one they could count on because I didn't complain. I had learned that complaining didn't change anything. Mom loved my sister. She said it was because my sister was fragile. She acted like that explained everything. I used to believe that too, until I realized it wasn't about being fragile. My sister didn't need someone to protect her. She needed people to let her do whatever she wanted. And my parents were experts at that. Still, I kept trying. Every birthday and every holiday, I tried to show them I was more than just a person in the background. The idea for the Europe trip came from a moment of hope. It was a feeling I shouldn't have trusted. I worked 24 months of overtime and skipped my weekends. I ate cheap lunches and kept a spreadsheet of every payment until I finally had enough money. I picked 3 cities they always talked about. I booked hotels with great views and tour that you had to sign up for months early. I imagined a week where we might finally feel like a family. By the time June came, I knew every code on the papers. I put the plan neatly into a folder in my bag. My suitcase was by the door the night before. I rolled my clothes tight and put a guidebook in the side pocket. I checked the alarms on my phone 3 times. This trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a way to fix things. It was a bridge I was trying to build, even though the ground had cracked years ago. That morning, I told myself everything would be different. I thought I might finally be part of the we my parents used when they talked about family plans. But as I turned into their driveway, the sun was coming up. My suitcase was in the trunk. I didn't know that the trip wasn't mine anymore. Everyone inside that house already knew it. Everyone except me. I knew something was wrong the second I parked by the mailbox. The house looked too busy. The curtains were open and I saw shadows moving. It was a kind of energy that didn't fit the quiet morning. I grabbed my bag and walked up the path. I was practicing the happy hello I thought I would say. But the front door opened before I could knock. My sister stepped out first. She wasn't dressed like someone getting a ride to the airport. She was dressed like someone about to get on a plane. Her hair was done, her bag was right next to her, and she had her passport in her hand. She didn't look surprised to see me. She looked ready. I stopped halfway up the steps. "What is going on?" I asked. Mom appeared behind her. She had that smile she uses when she already made a choice and wants me to just go along with it. "Oh, honey, good. You are on time," Mom said. I looked at my sister again. She was smirking. Her suitcase was packed perfectly. My chest felt tight. "Why does she have luggage?" I asked. Mom held her hands together, like she was worried about a small problem. "We decided to take your sister instead of you," Mom said. For a second, I didn't understand the words. They just floated there. It sounded like a mistake. "What?" I asked. "She has been under so much stress lately," Mom said. Her voice got soft, using that fake sympathy she never used on me. "Your sister needed some rest, so we decided to take her." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't just the words. It was the smile that followed. It was a little curl at the corner of her mouth. It was the smile of someone who expected me to be happy about being betrayed. Behind her, Dad moved in the doorway. He didn't look at me. "It just seemed like the right thing," Dad muttered. My sister pulled her bag handle. She sounded like she was faking an apology. "I mean, I didn't even ask. They insisted. They said I deserve this after everything I've been dealing with," my sister said. Everything she had been dealing with. An application she didn't finish. A rent payment I paid for her last month. A fight with a friend because she forgot to show up. I swallowed hard. I could taste bitterness. "Instead of me," I repeated quietly. Mom nodded. "You are always working, sweetie. You can take another trip later. You understand, right?" Mom asked. Understand, that word again. A whole life of being expected to understand. The morning sun was warm on my face, but I felt cold. I looked at my own suitcase in the trunk. I thought about 24 months of work folded inside. I realized the trip was gone before I even knew it. I stood there looking at the 3 people who were supposed to know me best. All I could do was stay silent. But this time, my silence wasn't about giving up. It was the sound of something changing. It was the sound of a line being drawn. The drive to the airport felt like sitting in a house that was already on fire. It was silent, smoky, and hard to breathe. I kept my eyes on the road. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, even though everything inside me was shaking. My sister was in the back seat looking at her phone. She was humming as if she were going on a spa weekend that she had actually earned. Mom spoke first. Her voice sounded bright and hopeful. She didn't seem to care about the damage she had done. "We will start with the river cruise," Mom said. "Then maybe some shopping. We will see how your sister feels." Everything was about how my sister felt. The whole trip, the 24 months of extra shifts, the canceled plans, and the cheap microwave dinners, was now being shaped for her comfort. Dad cleared his throat. "Thank you for driving us," Dad said quietly. "It means a lot." No, it didn't. If it meant a lot, they wouldn't have replaced me. But I didn't say a word. At one point, my sister leaned forward. She tapped the back of my seat. "Make sure you drop us at the departure's entrance," my sister said. Her voice was sharp. "The one closest to our airline. I don't want to drag my bags too far." Her bags, those were the bags that should have been mine. I just nodded. Nodding was the only thing keeping my anger inside my body. When we pulled up to the drop-off lane, I put the car in park. I got out to help with the luggage. My hands moved like a robot. I lifted bags that didn't feel like family anymore. They felt like weights I had been dragging my whole life. Mom kissed my cheek. "You are a good daughter. This really helps us," Mom said. I stepped back. "Yeah," I said softly. "I know." My sister gave me a big smile. She looked happy and unbothered. "You are the best, seriously," my sister said. And that was it. The final straw wasn't the betrayal itself. It was how easy it was for them. They were so comfortable cutting me out. They just stepped over me and walked toward the terminal. They never once looked back. I sat in my car for a long time. I watched them disappear into the sliding doors. I watched the automatic glass swallow the 3 people I had always tried to fit in with. I waited until they were gone. I waited until the lane was clear and my breathing was steady. Then I drove home. The house was still dark. The suitcase I had packed the night before was still waiting by my door. It looked like a lie I had told myself. I had thought that maybe this time they would choose me. I walked past the bag and sat down at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop. Every confirmation email I had saved was still in my inbox. The flights, the hotels, the tour, and the upgrades were all there. Everything had my name on it. It was my money and my effort. They had replaced me on the trip, but they couldn't replace the person who owned the reservations. For the first time in my life, I didn't fix their mistake. I took back what was mine. I did it one click at a time. Cancel, cancel, cancel. By the time the last reservation disappeared from the screen, I felt a strange calm. It wasn't joy and it wasn't revenge. It was just clarity. They would understand everything when their plane touched down in Europe. I was finally done being their backup plan. I didn't expect the first message to come so fast. I thought they would at least get to the hotel before they realized what I had done. But barely an hour after their flight landed, my phone lit up. First, it was a text from Mom, then a call from my sister, then another from Dad. A storm of notifications hit my phone. It was so constant that the screen froze twice. I didn't answer. I made some tea and opened a window. I let the summer air hit my shoulders while my phone vibrated like it was having a panic attack on the table. Only when the buzzing finally slowed down did I check the screen. There were 14 missed calls, 7 texts, and 3 voicemails. I opened the messages first. Something is wrong. The hotel says the reservation isn't there. Fix it, Mom wrote. Maybe there is a mistake. Call when you see this, Dad wrote. This isn't funny. We are stuck at the counter, my sister wrote. Mom sent another one. It was shorter this time. Fix it now. My lips curled into a small smile. It wasn't because I was being mean. I just felt a level of peace I had forgotten was possible. They weren't used to feeling the consequences of their actions. They were used to me absorbing everything for them. I set the phone down again. I let the silence last until late afternoon. By the time I finally listened to the voicemails, their voices had changed. The first one was from Mom. She sounded frantic. Riley, they said the reservation was canceled. Everything. The tour, too. They said the owner of the account did it. You booked everything. What did you do? Mom asked in the message. The second voicemail was from my sister. She was furious. You ruined our whole trip. Stop being dramatic and call the hotel back. Tell them it was a mistake. Riley, seriously, grow up, my sister said. The third one was from Dad. He sounded tired. This is getting out of hand. Call us so we can sort this out, Dad said. Sort this out? He acted like we were all equally responsible. He acted like we had all made the same choice. I didn't respond to any of them. That evening, I ordered some takeout food. I curled up on the couch and let their panic roll off me like water. It wasn't about being mean or seeking revenge. It was just about balance. For the first time in my life, the scale wasn't leaning entirely against me. The next morning, more messages came. This time, they sent photos. One picture showed Mom and Dad standing outside the hotel. Their luggage was piled up at their feet on the sidewalk. Another photo showed my sister sitting on an uncomfortable wooden bench. She was glaring at the camera. There was even a picture of the person at the front desk. They were pointing at a computer screen to confirm there was no reservation. No upgrades, no tour, nothing. Their messages all said the same thing. Fix it. I didn't fix it. Eventually, they found a room at a cheap budget hotel. It was far from the center of the city. It was tiny and dim. It was the total opposite of the nice places I had booked. They sent more photos of the small room and more complaints. They tried to make me feel guilty. By the third day, the way they talked to me changed. They weren't acting like they were better than me anymore. They sounded desperate and fake humble. Please call. We are struggling here. We need your help, one message said. I still didn't answer. For once, I wasn't the person who was going to solve their problems. When they finally came home, they didn't look like people who had been on a glamorous vacation. They looked defeated. They were exhausted and messy. I was already sitting on their porch when the taxi dropped them off at the curb. I wasn't hiding or trying to avoid them. I was just waiting. Even from the street, I could see they were a mess. Their clothes were wrinkled. Their hair was frizzy because of the humidity. They had dark rings under their eyes from all the stress. My sister saw me first. "Oh, great," my sister muttered. She dragged her suitcase toward the steps. "Here we go." Mom followed her. She had her chin up in that stubborn way she gets when she is both embarrassed and angry. "You owe us an explanation," Mom snapped. I didn't move from my spot. "What do you want me to explain?" I asked. "That trip was a disaster," Mom said. "We had to stay in a tiny room. The tour company kept saying we weren't on their schedule. Everything was chaos." Dad sighed very loudly. "You could have called someone. You could have fixed it," Dad said. I stood up then. I moved slow and steady. "Why would I fix a trip I wasn't invited to?" I asked. Mom blinked at me. "You are being dramatic," Mom said. "We thought you would understand. Your sister needed a break." "Needed a break from what?" I asked. My voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp. "From not having a job, from sleeping in every day, from waiting for someone else to fix her life." My sister's face turned red. "That is rude," my sister said. "What is rude?" I asked. I took a step down toward them. "What is rude is deciding to take my sister on a trip that I paid for. What is rude is smiling while you cut me out. What is rude is expecting me to pay for your vacation after you replaced me." Mom made a scoffing sound. "We didn't replace you," Mom said. "You did," I said. "You absolutely did, and you didn't even think twice about it." Dad tried to talk again. "You could have talked to us instead. You canceled everything," Dad said. I looked at him. I really looked at him. For the first time, I didn't just see my father. I saw a man who had spent his whole life avoiding any kind of conflict. "I didn't cancel everything," I said quietly. "I canceled what I paid for. You took me out of the trip, so I took myself out of the bill." Silence settled. It wasn't the heavy, suffocating silence I grew up with. This felt clean and clear. My sister crossed her arms. She stayed defensive until the very last second. "You ruined our entire week," my sister said. "No," I said. "I just stopped ruining my own life for you." Mom opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. She looked away. For the first time in her life, she didn't have a comeback. I picked up my keys and put my bag over my shoulder. "I hope you learned something from this," I said. "Because I did." Dad's voice sounded small when he spoke. "What did you learn?" Dad asked. "That boundaries are real," I said, "and I am finally going to keep them." I walked off the porch. Nobody followed me. As I reached my car, my sister called out to me. Her voice sounded like it was about to crack. "So what now? Are you just done?" my sister asked. I turned back one last time. "I am done being the person who fixes everything for you," I said. "But I am not done being family." Then I got in my car and drove away. I didn't feel like I had won a big fight, and I didn't feel like I was being mean. I just felt free. For many days after that talk, my phone buzzed with messages. I didn't rush to open them. There were short apologies from Dad. There were very sweet and carefully written texts from Mom. My sister sent a single line that just said, "Whatever." None of those messages carried any weight anymore. I only answered them when I felt like it. I never did it because I felt like I had to. With all that noise gone, my home finally felt like it was mine. I cleaned out drawers I had ignored for years. I moved the furniture in my living room and opened curtains that had been shut for way too long. There was a lightness in moving through those rooms. I wasn't carrying their expectations on my shoulders anymore. One evening, I sat at my desk. I pulled up that old spreadsheet I had used to plan the Europe trip. I expected to feel a sting, but I only felt clarity. That money was always meant to be spent on a memory that was worth it. So I booked a trip for just myself to Italy. I went to Rome first, then I went to Florence. There were no compromises and no last-minute changes for anyone else. When I stepped off the plane a few weeks later, a soft warmth wrapped around me. I walked down the streets and didn't have to manage anyone's mood. I ate when I wanted to. I stayed at places as long as I liked. Every moment felt like I was taking back something I didn't even realize I had lost. Freedom wasn't a loud thing. It was steady. And it finally belonged to me. By the time I flew back home from Italy, I knew one thing for sure. Love is not measured by how much you give to other people. It is measured by whether anyone ever gives anything back to you. Setting boundaries did not break my family. It finally showed me which parts of the family were actually worth keeping. If you have ever carried more than your fair share of the weight, I hope my story reminds you that you are allowed to step away. You are not alone, and you deserve better than being the person who fixes everything for everyone else.